Hey guys, before we start, a quick shout out to Alpha Dog Nutrition for sponsoring this podcast. Alpha Dog products are now available at dusupply.com, and you can use code ALPHADOG15 at checkout for 15% off and a credit for free shipping to try it yourself. Now let's get you to your podcast.
Where's Fielder? He's gone to the dogs.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Gone to the Dogs podcast. I'm your co-host, Corey Groover, and sitting here with me, not in the same room, but across the country in the great state of Florida, is the one and only Stephen Fielder. How you doing today, Steve?
I am doing great, Corey. I hope you are. Only members of my father, both sides of my family call me Stephen, my cousins and all. Everybody else calls me Steve. I answer to either one, and I have answered to dummy, hey dummy, or whatever, but...
Well, Steve, we're in for some wild times today on the podcast, I think. Yeah, I have in my possession something that I'm going to share with you. This was a toy that was given to my daughter here recently, and I think it's the greatest invention that I've ever seen for a children's toy. It's called the Hoot and Holler Animal Call.
Hoot and Holler Animal Call. Well, it looks like a calling horn, like a cow horn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, we're hound hunters, right? So we should have hunting horns.
Yeah.
And this one in particular can make the unique sound of up to 10 different animals.
10 different animals. Only on the Gone to the Dogs podcast, folks.
So I thought I was going to surprise you when you first came on, and I was going to start blowing on this thing, but I didn't want to upset your cardiac situation there. You know, especially considering you can't see right now.
Well, the one thing is this going to be like when I was 2 years old, Steve? What does the cow say? What does the dogs?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going with. I was going to play a couple for you and see if you could get them right off the bat or not. Because they're. I'll tell you what, this is one step below a hunting grade animal caller. Something that you might take coyote hunting. To be honest with you,
you might think that you're going to pull something over on me, but you got to get up pretty early. I got a puzzle. And I worked that sucker in 3 weeks. And man, I was so happy because on the box it said 2 to 5 years. And I did it in just 3 weeks. So
okay, so here's the deal. We're gonna play a little game. I'm gonna play 3 of them for you. And hopefully you're gonna be able to hear them through my microphone, but we'll start off easy and we'll go to intermediate and then we'll get harder with it. Okay.
Okay.
Does that sound fair enough?
I guess.
All right. Let's see. This is going to be number 1, mystery animal number 1. And I just want you to shout it out when you think you know the answer. Okay.
Shout it out. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure I hear you. So.
All right.
All right. Here we go.
Duck.
You are correct, sir. Give the man a round of applause. That was correct. It is a mallard duck drake.
A mallard duck drake. Oh, do I have to be that specific?
No. I'm just going by the pictures that are posted on the side of the collar.
Good thing you got pictures.
Yeah, the only beef I have with this thing is there's no raccoon on here. I would totally use this thing as a coon squaller because I know some people struggle with that. I don't, but it might be a good addition to add in with your thermal on your hunting vest or something like that.
Oh yeah,
it's easy to see. It's got a lot of bright colors to it, but
yeah, it's quite the neat deal. You're gonna get some looks though when you carry that to the coon club.
yeah. Okay, so we won't waste any more time. Here is mystery animal number 2 for you, Steve. And if you know this at home, shout it out too, okay? Here we go.
Turkey gobbler.
Yes, sir. Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner.
Okay, can I interact here a little bit?
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, all right.
It's your show.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like a puppy that just got whooped by a big old tomcat.
I used to be quite the adept mouth caller on a lot of different deals, but man, that old voice, I used to could sing tenor in a quartet too when those days are long gone. I used to like to do animal calls. In fact, my dad and I used them to communicate with each other when we're in the woods. My dad taught me when I was a kid, if somebody sneaked in fairly close to us when we were squirrel hunting, he'd just reach over and shake a sapling, and he'd go, and then we'd just slip out of the way, and Dad would say, that'll keep him busy for a while. Let's go on up the ridge up here.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so I got one more mystery animal here for you.
Mystery animal number 3.
Mystery animal number 3. This is a doozy. I'm just going to tell you, okay?
A doozy. All right.
All right, here we go. Oh, it might help if I turned it on, huh?
It was a silent dog whistle, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're right. Okay. All right, let me try it again. Well, doggone it. Don't tell me the thing ran out of batteries.
Uh-oh. Folks, the trouble is not in your set.
No, the trouble is with the operator. Trust me.
I know what that is. It is it is a bird of prey, either a hawk or an eagle.
Ooh, you have to pick.
A hawk.
Oh, man, he is right on the money. That is a red-tailed hawk. Woo, man, I thought I was going to get you on that one.
Yeah, the old woodsman.
Oh, man. Well, Steve, I know you think that the podcast is going downhill in a hurry with that, but thanks for letting me have a little bit of fun.
Well, I do need to have a talk tomorrow with our program director.
Yeah. We're running out of material here, folks.
That's right. That's right. Well, I thought you were going to ask me to do my world famous owl hoot, but I guess we'll save that for another episode.
We got to save that for our late night episodes.
Late nights.
Yeah.
Late nights gone to the dogs. Yeah. There we go. There we go.
So what do you have on the docket for us today?
Oh, well, a lot of things running through my head here. And that's a pretty short run anymore. But one of the things I thought we'd talk about just a little bit, because there's been some interest on the Coon Hunting Conversations page and the good old Book of Faces about this new Garmin LTE unit that I've been playing with, my buddy Mark Miller up in North Carolina, and I also sent a unit up to Randy Smith in Pennsylvania. Now, Randy and I haven't gotten together to do any testing or any, I guess you could call it testing. Are you still there, Corey?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I lost the visual of your person here.
He lost the visual on me, folks. He can't take me out now. I'm going dark, Steve.
Going into stealth mode here. Well, this program that we use is similar to a Zoom call. And anyway, it's called Riverside. And tonight I couldn't get any camera on my end. So, and that was a great benefit to you, Corey. Because as I've said many times, I have a great face for radio. But anyway, the Garmin LTE. Now, I'm not sure what those letters stand for. I should have looked that up to be better prepared. But anyway, it's the new unit that basically lets you track a dog through your cell phone. And I'm sure you've probably seen the comments about it on the W Hunting Supply podcast with Buddy Woodbury and Jason Doobie. And so anyway, I got a couple of these units since I'm down here in the swamp. And I thought it would be kind of fun the evening when the boys are out having fun, and that I could play along as well, at least to the point of watching the screen with the maps programs, topo maps or satellite imagery, and follow along with the hunt. So I've been doing that with Mark. In fact, had a nice hunt last night, but I've learned a few things about it. And do you know anything about them at all?
Well, I haven't had my hands on one, Steve. I've seen a lot online about them, and obviously you and I have had some conversations about them. But it seems like a pretty cool gadget. I mean, just from what you were telling me.
Well, I think you named it right. It's a gadget. It's not going to replace your Garmin 2 or 300 or even the Garmin 10. But it is a great backup because you can track your dog virtually anywhere that unit has cell service. I'm sitting at home. Of course, I've got cell service, but it depends on the area where the dog's hunting to have adequate signal to make the thing work, to be effective. Yeah. And Mark lives in the foothills of the mountains. And so sometimes he's, on fairly level ground and has good service. And other times he hunts the mountain. And so a couple of things I learned that I can share for our listeners is that when you're tracking the unit, actually it shows up on your screen, on your cell phone. There's an app called the Alpha app that Garmin provides. And you go into that app and you pair with the device. And the user on the action end, let's say with Mark, he'll have to push the button in the end of the unit until he gets a blue light blinking, and that allows me to pair with it. And then, of course, he turns the unit on when he goes hunting. One of the drawbacks of this thing is trying to get it on a darn dog collar. It is incredibly difficult to slide one of these, the type of collar straps that we all use nowadays, these plastic coated, I guess it's plastic, nylon, whatever the material is, collars. It's like rubbing two pieces of rubber together. There's it just adheres to the darn collar, and you can't get the strap to go through it. I finally had to spray some WD-40 on the collar strap, on the tag end of the collar, and was able, after letting it sit for a little while, to wiggle that thing enough, to get it to slide through the slots. It has a slot on either end. I guess I'm using the word correctly, slot, and you stick the collar, through there, and that secures it to your regular tracking collar. I think what I would do is get a smaller, a narrower collar, perhaps like a puppy collar, and put it through there, and then just, run it as a third collar on the dog. It's not invasive. It's very small. It's only about 2.5 inches long by about 1 inch wide, about 1 inch deep or thick. But anyway, you get the thing on there, and what you get on the receiving end is virtually the same thing you'd see on your screen on a Garmin, on your Garmin handheld. And you have choices of maps that you can use, and I select the satellite map, so I get the kind of like the bird's eye imagery,
And refresh me here. You're doing this all through an app.
Doing it through an app on my cell phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there a specific name to that app?
It's Alpha. Let me see. I can tell you in just 1 second here, through the miracle of it's just I think it's just the Alpha app. That's it. I think it's just called Alpha app.
Oh, nice.
And when you key that, or tap on that app, it's going to show my location. Okay, I'm here in Florida, and it's going to show the map, a bird's eye view of my community, and my location is going to show up as a blue delta or diamond. Actually, not a diamond, a little arrow type thing.
Yeah, right.
And so then what I'm going to have to do is just zoom in to make the map smaller to cover the whole country. And I know Mark's up in North Carolina, so I'm going to zoom all the way up into North Carolina, and I'm going to see. Excuse me just a second. I'm going to see a red circle, and I have named the unit Fever in this case. So I'm going to get a red dot that's going to have Fever under it, and it's going to show, if the dog is stationary, it's going to show a treeing dog. If the dog is moving, it's going to show a running dog within that little circle. So then I just zoom in on that, and I've selected my maps, and also now I'm getting a bird's eye view of where Fever is. And as Mark, leaves the house, I follow the track all the way, the highways, the twists and turns that he makes, till we get to the location. Now, the thing about this is it doesn't really give you a lot of information back. It's all visual. There's no sound or anything. You're not seeing how fast the dog's traveling. You're not seeing the distance, except there's a little scale on the side that will show you how many, say it's 1,000 yards. Well, you just have to use that scale to determine how far, maybe the dog is from. But I don't, from that point on, I don't know where Mark is because it's not tracking him. He doesn't have a unit on. So all I'm doing is tracking the dog. So I'm visualizing the dog's movements from wherever and in relation to the terrain that he's on. But
Okay.
and then when the dog trees, it's going to give me that treeing dog icon. And then the old cell phone messenger or whatever takes over, and we communicate back and forth with that. He's treed. He's like before last, it was 760 yards to where he was treed. So I know, about how long it's going to take him to get there and all. And then he'll send me a video at the tree. And also, it works hand in hand with the cell phone. But it is fun to be able to sit here and watch that activity, as it takes place.
So let me ask you this: with your experience in working with professional dog registries conducting major events, do you see there's any potential with this particular product to enhance maybe play-by-play action that we see on a national scale at some of these major events?
Well, I would think you'd have to have one of these units on each of the dogs. And I'm not sure that you could differentiate one unit from the other.
Okay.
I don't know if you could do multiple tracks on the one app. I haven't tried anything like that. But in order to do that, you would have to have the tracks color keyed and those identified by the person that was doing the play-by-play.
Sure.
Now, the one thing that it would help a play-by-play analyst or whatever would be to say that the dogs are, northwest of the trucks. They're in mountainous or swampy or on a river or whatever. It would probably add to the color presentation. But
Okay.
this thing but this is what I've noticed about it. When it gets to a point that it loses a cell signal, it just stops right there. You don't get any kind of message. You don't get any indication other than the track just stops right there. And unless you have, communication with the handler or the hunter, you're not going to know what happened right there. But
it's not super sophisticated yet.
No, it's not super sophisticated. To me, it's just it's a bit amazing to think that I'm sitting here 600 plus miles away and tracking my dog, from my armchair. But in that aspect, it's fun. But what I noticed about it was like when it gets to that point and the signal is dropped and you don't see anything, then let's say Mark is there on the mountain, he goes to the tree, sends me the videos, he does all that. And when let's see, he has the dog on the lead and he gets back to the truck, when he gets back in cell phone range, boom, that entire track shows up on the screen.
Oh, wow.
So
it doesn't just straight line like the handheld units.
Right. So it remembers that track, but it just didn't have the ability to transmit that track in real time.
Okay.
That's the way I've got it figured. Now, somebody with a lot higher pay grade than mine may be able to tell me what's going on there. And I'm sure Buddy Woodbury or somebody like that would be able to do that. Maybe Zachary Conkey at Conkeys. But anyway, it's a fun deal. And it's kind of fun. Mark will text me and he'll say, "You got your boots on?" I'd say, he said, "I'll be leaving about 9." So I know to go and pick up my phone and tap on the app, and lo and behold, more times than not, there's a red track leaving from his house heading somewhere. So it's a fun deal to have, and I'm looking forward. Like I say, I sent one up to Randy Smith, so I'll be able to. He's great about sending me videos of his hunts anyway, and so yeah, it's. As I learn more about it, I want to share because people have questions. But the unit itself, the whole thing is only, I think it's $300 for the unit that you put on the dog, and it's very low impact as far as the dog. It's very lightweight. Doesn't take up much room. But so I don't know. I don't know if I'm helping or hurting sales. I hope I'm helping, but at any rate, that's my experience.
So, in your professional opinion, one thing that we see quite often nowadays is these dogs that are going into especially competitive events. Man, they've got 3 or 4 different collars on top of their regular collar already. So now this LTE unit has the ability to just slip onto an existing collar, even if it's, say, a tracking collar or a training collar.
Correct. And
Okay,
apparently
so
they've developed it so that there's no interference. Now there is, and this is something I haven't done, and I'll have to ask Mark if he does it. You can pair it with your Garmin handheld.
Oh.
So I guess when maybe the Garmin, the standard handheld loses signal just simply because of distance or whatever, if there's cell service available, this thing would be able to still give you a reading as to where the dog is.
So maybe in the future here, we'll see less collars on dogs and we don't have to start breeding for longer necks.
That's correct.
Okay.
I had a coon hunter tell me one time we're going to have to figure out a way to breed giraffe into these hounds so it can have a little more length to the neck to accommodate. Of course, that was back in the day with the Tritronic trainer, trash breaker, and then the tracking collar, and then the normal, running collar that we keep on dogs all the time.
Sure.
So, yeah, the more they can consolidate all of this into one package, the better it's going to be. But
I'd say so. But hey, that's ingenuity at its finest, I would say.
Yeah, and that brings up another subject a little bit, Corey. This week on the Book of Faces, we're talking, I think, on coon hunting conversations about the technology, and some of the older guys were saying, what you need to do is lay that down and leave it in the truck or whatever, and listen to your dog and all. It's an ongoing conversation. We get that all the time. And I made the comment, I said, well, I was taught by a houndsman from a very early age, and I learned the things that I would have never known, and I wouldn't trade that knowledge that I have of hounds, learned old school, chiefly from my dad, also by hunting with other guys and do competition hunting and all that. I wouldn't trade that knowledge for all the electronics in the world, but I do appreciate the electronics, and I don't want to be without them. But that knowledge of maybe I'm being self-serving, maybe I'm being egotistical, but I think I know a lot more about hunting and hounds and how they operate than the person that just depends on the technology and doesn't really get to know that hound up close and personal, through nights and nights of hunting.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, because it's all a matter of preference, right? So
yeah,
I'm a young guy, and I've grown up in both, with my feet in both realms, where we hunted with flashlights and boot leather, and now I'm hunting with Garmin Alphas and all kinds of fancy tech. But I can't get on board for a lot of the technology that I'm seeing come into the sport now, and that's not to say that any of it's bad, or will make somebody less of a hunter than what I am. I just don't have a preference for it. So, like thermal imaging, for example,
mm-hmm.
I bought a thermal shortly after UKC started allowing them to be used as scoring aids. And I figured, well, I'll try it out, at least, and see how I feel about it, so I know what I'm talking about, and yada yada yada. And I hunted with it for one whole season, in the fall, which might have been my problem, but I just didn't really see the need for it. I could find coons just as easy with it or without it, and sometimes I couldn't find coons just as easy with it as I could without it. So, I don't know that anybody should be condemned for or given a hard time just because they participate in the sport a certain way. If you want to look at your Garmin, look at your Garmin. If you want to carry a thermal, carry a thermal. If you want to do it old school, do it old school.
Yeah, well, when my son was young in our church, we had an organization for youth similar to Boy Scouts. It was called Royal Rangers, but it was very much styled after Boy Scouts. And we had what was called Frontier Camping Fraternity within that. And the older guys, the leaders, the older boys, and I don't think that that's restricted to boys only, but at that when Chris was involved in it, we didn't have any girls in it that I know of. I think they had their own thing. But it was all about learning how to do, things the old-fashioned way, how to use, a muzzle loader, and how to use lashing, and all to build, to construct things. I know that's one thing when we have a camp out or a jamboree type thing, it's called a monkey bridge. We lashed that all together. It was like a swinging bridge. It was ropes and all, and it was, when you crossed it, it was constantly moving, and just learning the old ways, like of muzzle loaders versus, modern ammunition, and how to start a fire with a flint and steel, and how to purify water, and how, build a teepee for yourself,
Right.
survival instincts, based on the way the pioneers, the frontiersmen did it. It's fun stuff. So, I've heard people say on Facebook, it'd be fun to just have a hunt the old fashioned way. Get some Coleman lanterns or carbide lights, and calling horns and all that sort of thing, and just hunt the way that I grew up hunting, and that would be fun to do. But I'm not going to jump in line to say we should abolish all the technology and go back to that. No, because I appreciate the technology,
Well, it's no different than modern day archery hunters versus traditional archery hunters.
Yeah.
They each have their
Yeah. Whether you hunt a
benefits.
recurve or you like training wheels on your bow, in other words, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love riding around with training wheels on, trust me.
But when you go on a hunt and you walk along or whatever, and you're hearing those Garmin beeping all the time, we didn't have that to tell me my dog is checking trees or whatever.
Well, to be fair, I mean this is probably going to date me, but I think those tracker classics and those older style telemetry units made a hell of a lot more noise than the Garmin's do.
Oh yeah, if you were using it, but of course back in those
Yeah,
days in competition, you weren't permitted to use it.
right.
And then they came along and said, well, you can use it during timeouts to recover your dog. But none other. But in the early days of telemetry equipment, they were verboten. You
Yeah,
couldn't use them at all because the thinking was, and I was there during that day, was that unless every man on that cast has a tracking unit, and when that hour timeout is called to go find your dog, every man has the same ability to locate his dog as the other, then yeah, that would be fair. But then you would be saying, and this was the thinking back then, the entry fee's $15 for the night hunter. We're going to require every contestant to have a $300 tracking unit, which is about what they cost back then,
right.
And they said, well, no, we can't do that. So there's been an evolution for sure, and I've been there for a lot of it. The technology, when I came aboard in that office on Kilgore Road where you also sat, there was, basically we were still into the coon hunter's favorite 6-volt light from Nightlight, with the rheostat on. Yeah.
I'll tell you what. One thing that the evolution of tracking technology did for me, at least, was it kept me from looking like a cheerleader twirling a baton around trying to find my dog. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 Well, I've seen guys, those old trackers, it looks like they'd spin themselves right into the ground like an auger, turning, trying to determine which direction that signal was coming from. But
Oh yeah, because sometimes you'd get a little feedback and you'd get a beep going from two different directions at the same time, and you had to guess sometimes.
that's right.
So,
That's right. Okay, Corey, you and I talked earlier. We liked on this podcast, believe it or not, most of the time we jump on our horse and ride off in all directions, but we do have a plan. We don't often stick to it, but we do have a bit of an idea of where we want to go with it to hopefully entertain and inform our audience for an hour or so. And I think you were the inventor or the creator of this concept or this question: who owns the responsibility of improving the breeds of dogs? I wrote a chapter in my book, and I may be misquoting it, but it's called "Who's Responsible?" and how a dog turns out. Is it
sure.
the trainer, the hunter that has it, or is it the breeder? And that was the gist of that article or that essay. But, as we were talking, I believe last week or one of the weeks prior, it may have been something that you and I were just talking about privately, people commenting on how to improve the breed and so forth. And some people seem to take on the responsibility of being the teacher for everyone else, and that their ideas are best, and therefore everybody else should step in line. And that kind of generated our thoughts on this subject. But what do you got on that?
Well, I being a novice connoisseur of plot hounds myself, I've just decided to breed a young female that I have, just as an example. And I it got me thinking about it, and what exactly does the plot hound breed want from anybody that breeds plot hounds, and who creates that criteria of what we expect to get from our litters, what we want to aspire to get from those litters of dogs, and who's in charge of um, you know not just policing but educating new breeders and new fanciers in the breed as to what the best practices are. And that was kind of what brought up the discussion for tonight is where does the responsibility fall, and how do we communicate our universal idea of what a plot hound or an English coonhound or a red bone coonhound is supposed to be.
Well, somebody brought that question up, I think, this week online about, who decides, who determines uh, these breed standards, for instance. And that's all done within a breed association, within a committee. And hopefully that committee is expressing the wishes of, the membership. I know in the Plot Association, years ago, Dr. Furman, who was then president of UKC, the predecessor to Fred Miller, sent a survey to all the what he considered known breeders of plot hounds. I don't know what criteria he used. I would imagine that it had been guys that maybe submitted more than a litter or two. And I believe there were 140 some individuals that were contacted and sent a survey. And the question was predominantly about the color of the plot hound, because that issue went on and on and on for years. Should the fawn colored or buckskin colored plot be permitted into the registry? And at that time, in those 140 some members, a vote was taken, and it was overwhelmingly in favor of not allowing those buckskin dogs, primarily because there were instances of red bones being bred to plots and those puppies being registered as purebred plots. And of course, being in the registry business, Dr. Furman wanted to, preserve the integrity of the UKC records. But, times change, situations change, discussions were brought for years. And in fact, the late Dale Brandenburger even brought up, and it was discussed and voted on in the Plot Association meeting, annual membership meeting, that this question of the buckskin plot would never be brought before the membership again. And it was put in the bylaws. But, it did come up, and it did. And ultimately, I guess UKC just decided, well, enough of this. And I, for one, was on the opposite side of the fence of UKC in that issue. I did not favor the registration of the buckskin, but UKC said we're going to do it, whether the breed association agrees or not. We're going to accept these fawn-colored dogs. We're also going to except solid color dogs, the black dogs. So be that as it may, I'm not going to argue my side of that story or anything of that nature. But that's just to illustrate that, always before, the breed associations, through their memberships, vote, and through the rules committee, determine those sorts of things. However, in this wide world of dogs that we live in, and I saw this particularly in the conformation world when I was with the AKC, there exists a overwhelming temptation for people to impose their wishes, their ideas, their thoughts on everybody else. And I think that's what brought this conversation to the front, was it not, Corey, of you seeing some posts to that effect in social media? Am I wrong?
Well, yeah, you're probably right about that. So my understanding thus far, just from the brief description that you've given us, which I think was very good, by the way, it's a lot like voting for president. Everybody is involved in this group called a membership, let's say. And the membership comes together and makes an association. And then that association dedicates themselves to making the best possible decisions geared towards the future and longevity of their breed. Is that a good synopsis of what you said?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that being said, we've both kind of given analogies to the concept of being an individual breeder and also being kind of in a community of breeders that make important decisions for a breed. So obviously, if you're going to raise a particular breed of coonhound, you should have a good idea of what the rest of the breeders around you are striving for, or at least what your breed association or your breed standards indicate you should be breeding for. That's not to say that individuals can disagree with the direction of their own breeding programs and make decisions for their individual dogs that may contradict those that belong to the majority. Is that right, Steve?
Yes, that's right.
Do we have any good examples of that, per se?
Well, okay. As you're talking, I'm thinking the importance. Okay, you talked about this body of breeders within a given breed, each with the idea that they're trying to improve the breed.
Sure.
And many times your idea and my idea are different.
Correct.
Very many times. Unfortunately, in coon hunting, a lot of times our ideas are formed by whatever we happen to be leading at that time. Leading and feeding. Okay. So that influences our opinion of what a breed number A breed is going to be or should be like. To me, that's why breed days were so important down through the years, because these breeders would get together at these big breed events and show off what the fruits of their labor. If you're breeding for a certain type of dog, let's say it's black and tans, as my good friend Gene Hicks down there, he kind of started off with a dog named Mingo down there that had a lot of the old-fashioned black and tan in him. He had real long ears, beautiful hound. You know, well, then somebody else over here may come by, Blaze Bauer, Kansas, may come along with what we call an owl-faced dog or a monkey-faced dog, and he has tremendous success in the breed, at breed days, or Tim Whitaker in the Purina race with the Smoky dog that he had, and so each had their own ideas. They were breeding to their own personal standard, but staying within the canopy of the overall breed standard.
So what you're saying is that not only does the individual hold a responsibility to improving their breed or making decisions for their own breeding programs, but they have this overarching canopy, so to speak, of a breed organization that's also representative of the individuals holding that responsibility to their designated breed.
Yes. And, I used to admonish the judges, the confirmation judges at AKC in the seminars at Westminster and other places, that to be very careful of the dogs that they put up in these shows, because that was what the fancy was going to breed to, was that winning type dog. And
Sure.
so, and so all that kind of dovetails together. I think that, we all have our own individual ideas. My father and I, we bred more toward the old fashioned type plot dog, heavy boned, little bit rough haired, little bit of flag on the tail, short, heavy tailed dogs. Uh, you know, uh, in our opinion, bred more for performance in the type of terrain, the mountainous terrain, the thick laurel thickets, and all those kind of things came into play in the type of dog that my dad and I bred over the years. And so you're able, I think, to tailor, to kind of tailor your particular strain of dogs the way that you need them to be, and still stay within the standard. And but to get back to what we were talking about, I think, is to say that who's right? We're all right as long as we stay within that, under that umbrella. Nobody has, been knighted to be the be all end all authority on his or her breed.
Yeah.
Preference comes in, plays a big part, personal preference, and what the judges pick.
So I guess it all boils down to a matter of opinion and what certain people define as quality. So obviously we want to breed quality dogs in any breed. It doesn't matter what breed you're talking about. We want to breed the best of the best. Well, who gets to determine what that quality is and what it looks like? Especially when you have a system where individual strains of dogs within a breed are being developed. And I think to play into what you're describing there, Steve, I don't know that there is a way to do that, or at least to police it. And like you said, we all kind of police each other, don't we, to a certain extent, just with the idea of competition and seeing what wins and judging, our breeding stock, whether that's in the woods or in the show ring.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I think that we all want to make the best decisions we can, hopefully with the breed in mind. But, some people, it may just be, exclusively for competition purposes or, their success rate or whatever, what have you. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that not there isn't a single person that makes that determination for a breed. So I think we need to be careful when we decide to go into the realm of breeding specifically, and as it relates to competition, because 1% does not make the majority, and 1%, there's a revolving door of people who are well endowed within their breed and who find success, and those people constantly change over time. So obviously, the majority opinion of the breeders within a breed can do the same thing, correct?
Well, yeah, and I think before we get too nerdy on this, because I can see a lot of these old hunters back there scratching their heads and saying, what the hell are they talking about? You know, dog people that really get down in the weeds of dogs, as I have all my life, and as you have, we enjoy all the aspects of purebred dogs, and being able to observe and recognize, outstanding individuals, and be able. We're always told judge to strengths and not to faults. When you're judging dogs, but and there's that whole group of dog people that fall in that bracket. My good friend Lee Kern's a lifetime coon hunter, doesn't coon hunt anymore, still shows dogs. He's into his 80s. Loves a good looking dog and knows one, and won't put anything but on the bench. Those kind of people. And then we've got the people out there that just like a coon dog. They just like a dog that can get the job done. And I can hear them right now saying, yes, that's me. What's all this stuff about, breed standards and controlling how they look and all that? Well,
I think you make a good point there, Steve. I think a majority of the people out there are very conscientious about what's written in their breed standards and what's going on within their breed organizations. So I guess the point that I'm trying to drive home to our viewers and to myself is that there isn't this elitist group at the top, the tippy top, the cream of the crop, if you will, that gets to make decisions on how or when or why dogs within a particular breed are bred, or if they even deserve to be bred.
Yeah.
So it's and to bring it back to my point, it's much like voting for president. Majority wins, right? And
supposed to.
Well, that's
okay. Continue on.
My gosh, gotta keep Steve's under muzzle apparently. Now you just made me lose my whole train of thought.
Well, let me throw this one out to you, because yeah. All right. Along comes a person that, through divine providence, comes up with a puppy that's just, the stars line up for this dog. I mean, it's drop dead gorgeous from the day it's born. When it walks into the ring, he acts like he owns it. He wins everything. Automatically, the person, the benefactor of that dog, although it may not have bred the dog, had nothing to do with it, purchase of the dog, becomes the be-all, end-all authority on the breed because they own that one particular dog. I have nobody in mind as I'm talking here, so, but that's not the way it works. Just because you have a big winner does not make you an authority on dogs. It may, if you study that dog and actually are able to comprehend all the reasons why that dog beat his competition so handily. Was it its breeding? Was it the training you put into him? All of these things. But it doesn't make us an authority just because we have been fortunate enough to own a great dog. Correct. And the same thing
really well put.
Applies to hunters. Because we have a great winner, a dog that's just phenomenal, and you can think of them. Go to PKC and look at the list of all-time money winners, or go look at UKC's lists of dogs that have come to the top in major events. That does not automatically qualify that owner of that dog to be a great breeder of coonhounds. It may be an individual. It may be luck.
Yeah. So, Steve, I thought of a good way to summarize my question. So, how does breeding superior coonhounds work? Does it work from, do we work from the ground up, or do we work from the top down? What do you think in that equation?
Oh, I think
let's get some wisdom here.
Well, it's the chicken or the egg, but generally it's going to work from the bottom up. Yeah. It's going to be the result of many years of selective breeding. Breeding the best to the best is one person's method. Certainly, if you're talking conformation dogs, it's easier to breed for good looks than it is for ability.
Yeah, and I guess if you look at it as a pyramid, when I'm asking that question, as does it work from the bottom up or the top down? The bottom being the foundation stock of the breed, the very tippy top being the pinnacle of winners in competitive events that are being bred. There's more room for error if you work in the opposite direction, if you work from the top down. And the bad parts, or maybe the uneducated guesses, or the crosses that just didn't work, they end up having more of a profound effect on the entire breed.
Yes.
When you work from the top down.
Yeah.
As it would be if you were working from the bottom up, and they were just a small part of that equation.
Yeah, because that becomes an issue of the foundation. Are the dogs built on a firm foundation? You don't put the cupola or the weather vane on the house first. You dig the footers, and you start, as the Bible says, as I'm prone to quote more as I get older, line upon line, precept upon precept.
Yeah.
Amen. And so, yeah. And I said earlier, it's a chicken and egg. From my standpoint, you got to have that firm foundation. Now, if you just pick that outstanding individual at the top with no regard for what were in those layers or generations below, you have no foundation there for your line of dogs.
And the pyramid analogy works in more than one way than just looking at as the individual dogs making up that pyramid. You could apply that to the breeders as well. So, if we look at a pyramid, and the foundation of that pyramid is our breed organization membership, for example. And then the very tippy top of that pyramid is, maybe the best breeder or the best handler or the best competitor with that particular breed of dog. Um, I feel like that we're going to have a stronger, better, healthier breed if we focus on our roots, focus on our foundation, focus on the general consensus rather than just individual people who are prevalent within the breed at a particular time. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Well, okay, we'll bring this home here.
Okay, bring it home, Steve.
Mark Miller and I have a dog, and it's no secret. We've been vocal about it. When he's gone out and done something, we've posted it on Facebook.
Sure.
And and to be honest, I think he's exceeded our expectations. I know that he has. And it's probably what could be considered a dog of a lifetime for most anyone. But the future for that dog is uncertain. He's now being bred, and he proves that he can get puppies. 31 puppies, I think it was like 33 puppies in 3 litters, and 30 of them are still living.
Wow.
So, sheer numbers, and of course that, goes back to the female determines the number of puppies due to the number of her eggs. The male determines the sex, and so far his ratio is running stronger toward males than females by about 2 to 1. But the onus is on Mark and me to select puppies from him to be, introduced back in to that line, to what the dogs that we credit with, him being a good hound. And there is a family of dogs there, and I'm not going to go into all that. It's not about him really, but it's an example. So, the onus then is on us to select from my standpoint. Here's what I look at. I'm going to look at trying to breed, nieces and nieces back to him, or granddaughters back to him, or, create a line of dogs and build a foundation brick upon brick. I'm not young enough, old enough to do that, to see it to completion. I'm too old is what I'm trying to say.
No.
To see that, really come to pass. But that's what has to be done with dogs. I mean, just because you have a winner and just because the dog is phenomenal does not mean that he's going to produce his likeness. And that remains to be seen. But the point I'm trying to make here is, to how can I say this? To be deemed an authority on a breed takes a lot of years, a lot of litters, a lot of sweat and blood, a lot of failures, and a lot of, and hopefully a good number of successes. It's not an overnight deal. And nobody, just because they, were the big winner at the top of the list last year, is as endowed with the ability to determine from that point forward what's best for that breed. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. So the point that I hope Steve and I are doing a good job of conveying to our listeners is you hold as much power in the breed as you're willing to take responsibility for. And you're being able to breed a particular dog that they like to possibly try to develop a strain of dogs. There's endless possibilities of how individual people can influence their breed in a positive way. And I think that that's an important point to drive home, that when you do it responsibly and do it honestly, I think that the possibilities are endless, really.
Well, other friend Randy Smith from Mississippi, it's a black and tan guy. And for the last few years, he's been getting some outstanding young dogs from the bloodline up there in Indiana, I believe it is, of Chad McCoy. And that family of dogs is really producing some nice dogs. I get to see these young dogs at the White River. So if you're out there, the point I want to make is if you're out there and you want to have nice dogs and you want to start your own breeding program and to be a breeder is what you aspire to be, then you're going to have to start laying the footer. You're going to have to dig the ditch. You're going to have to pour the concrete. And you're going to have to start building on that. And you're going to have failures and you'll have successes, hopefully, and all. And it's going to be a process. Or, I think this is probably the wiser, because we really don't need more dogs. We need more good dogs. Correct. So find out what's working and let that be your source, and then maybe down the road, if you want to raise a litter for your own use and you want to try it and see what breeding might produce, and all right, then go for it. But, there are resources available out there to all of us if we'll just pay attention, and I think that's one of the things that social media has done for us, is opened the doors to communication where we have instant information, some of it good, some of it bad. And I would caution anybody that's listening not just to go by what you read on social media. But if you hear of someone that has a line of dogs that you of the breed that you want to be involved with, go and hunt with those dogs. Talk to people that have dogs from that line of dogs. Do your homework a little bit, and then let someone else do all that foundational work. And then, you get to come to the barbecue when the house is all built.
Yeah, that's a great point, Steve. Mentorship is something that is invaluable at the same time. And there are lots of people within these different breed organizations who are eager and willing and well knowledgeable enough to serve as a mentor for someone who wants to, is thinking about becoming a breeder or trying to influence, a particular breed of dog in some sort of way. And, I would recommend highly that you look for people like that in your life to model yourself after in a positive way, for sure.
Well, Corey, I know that we've probably bored some. Hopefully, we've inspired some. Hopefully, we've cleared the air for some. But the bottom line is that we love hounds, and we know that if you're listening to Gone to the Dogs, you love them too, or you would not be listening to this mindless drivel every week. But it's all intended, to help you. And if we can put a cap on that discussion, it's just what you said, Corey, of what we said in our opening question. Who owns the responsibility of improving the breed? And it's you, and it's me, and it's all of us who decide that we want to be involved in that breed. And I have to laugh, for years I've read stud ads. Well, the only reason I'm offering this dog at stud is to improve the breed. I wish that were true. Unfortunately, a lot of times it was the reason I'm offering this dog for stud is because I want you to bring me your dollars.
Right.
Exactly. And if you've got money as a motivator in breeding dogs, you've got the wrong idea. Because you're gonna, as somebody said one time, he was on the road to being a PKC millionaire. I said, "Oh, that's great." He said, "Yeah, I'm spending $80 to win 60." And that's no shade on PKC. We all know how the game's played. Mark, I've got an old letter here that I thought might be kind of fun to share with the. Before we do, have we shined that tree enough?
Oh yeah, I'm satisfied.
Did you have to use the thermal, or were you able to?
I didn't have to use a thermal, but let's just circle it. Let's
circle it. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Maybe we'll come back to that.
Maybe when we come back through here after a while, maybe in the next episode, we'll shine it again. We won't be able to score it, but at least we'll know whether we hit the mark or not.
Yeah, exactly. So let's hear this letter you got. I'm interested to hear it.
Well, as always, I got to give you just a little bit of background. The fellow that wrote this letter's name was Wayne Griggs. Wayne lived in Rensselaer, Indiana, over on the kind of the northwest side of Indiana, not far from the Illinois line. Wayne was a farmer, and he also worked. He kind of was the gopher and kind of kept the veterinary clinic down in Lafayette, Indiana, going. He was a sharp old guy, and I really enjoyed knowing Wayne because he and I served together as officers in the National Bloodhound Association. Wayne was the secretary when I was president. Anyway, this letter was dated January 29th, 1986, which would put it at about, 38 years ago? It would be 40 years coming up in 26. And I just noticed, and I just noticed something interesting. It was written on January 29th, which happened to be my dad's birthday. My dad.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, how about that? Excuse me just one second. Okay, my dad's name was Holman Fielder. The letter starts, "Hi, Holman. Thought I would write a few lines. Our season is over here in Illinois. We did hunt quite a little in January this year. Out of 22 nights, in November, I only missed 3 nights. I didn't hunt through December. It was cold. And let's see, and he's writing this in longhand, so you got to bear with me. Only hunted 3 or 4 times, but January was warm, and we'd hunted several nights. There's been years I killed more coon and treated more coon, but I think this last has to be one of my better years. I hunted a lot with my grandson, and that sure made for an enjoyable season. The boys also caught their first coon this winter while I was sitting by the fire. They do most of the legwork and handle the dogs while I do the driving." Now, he had 3 or 4 grandsons, and he did bring them up to Michigan and hunt with me when I lived there. Like all good things, there must be some sorrowful things, excuse me. I expect that Steve has told you I got Dixie killed by a train. She was cold trailing a coon, and I guess and being bullheaded at the time, the train hit her, And one thing for sure, she never suffered any. Also, I found her and did not have to wonder what had happened. I'll say one thing for sure. I've hunted 55 years, and I've never owned a dog like Dixie was. I've seen her different times take a track no other dog would open on and finish it, and several times we saw the coon. Sometimes it would be a den tree, but mostly they would be seen. This showed me she had a heck of a nose. And another thing, when she treed, you just as well start walking because she was there to stay. I never knew her to leave a tree after she came down hard on it. I'll probably never own another one like her. At first, I probably will not be able to find one, and if I do, I probably won't be able, or I won't have the money to pay for it. She was the best I ever owned, and I've had a few that would tree a coon. I planned to hunt my Blue Jean, that was a puppy out of Dixie, hard this summer, and maybe she'll take after her mother. And I think I do know now Jean has a ball mouth like Dixie had. She fights a coon good, but she has a big pair of shoes to fill if she's as good as her mother. If you have a good plot for sale, let me know. You know the type I like. The main thing is that it hunts close. I find I don't have the timber for a wide hunting dog. I probably would not have the money to buy it if you did have one for sale, but I would like a chance. Right when you can, maybe we can visit at Plot Days this year. I have no idea when it will be, but I hope to be there. A friend, Wayne. That's the kind of letters that my dad received and wrote to his friends across the country when he was involved in a breed association, the National Plot Association. Dixie was a female that we raised as a puppy. She was a line-bred female built from the ground up, as we discussed earlier. And the reason that my dad sold Dixie was that she was outstanding as a young dog, but she severely injured a right front leg in the carpal's joint. And when she was hunted for about 30 minutes, especially on bear, that joint would swell up almost like a softball. And she just couldn't keep up in those hard races anymore. But she was a coon treer. And I won Best in Show in 3 different states with Dixie, including at Plot Days. And it's kind of funny to think it was, I believe, at Rockville, Indiana at Plot Days, she won the Best Female Show, and they had a show to bring back the best of shows from both days to show for an overall, and I forgot all about that. I had Dixie tied in the barn when that show Fight Around was going around. So I can't blame all my forgetfulness on old age. But I just thought I would share that with some of especially the older hunters, to show the way that the older guys thought about their dogs and how a coon hunter, if you really have a good one, you appreciate it. And I just thought, in memory of Bearpin Dixie, I would read that letter from Wayne Griggs. He's long gone on. I talked with his grandsons after he passed. I'm sure his wife has followed him. But just a great guy that I really enjoyed knowing, that I met through the Plot Dogs and through the Plot Association. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that.
Yeah, I always love hearing, old letters or anything with some age on it has some wisdom to share with us, especially when it comes to hound hunting.
Well, with Jason and Danny Doobie resurrecting Full Cry, and those are kind of the stories that we used to read, when I was a kid, about the hunts and about the dogs and all. And I hope we'll never lose that communication in this sport. That we don't rush in to pay an entry fee and rush back out and not take time, to talk to the people in the room.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
Well, Corey, I think we about shined the tree for tonight, don't you, friend?
I think so. I think it's time to pee on the fire and call the dogs in. See, he's rubbing off on me, folks.
That is right. And if you ever wonder why Corey and I get together like this, it's simple. We've gone to the dogs. Folks, thanks for listening in. Appreciate so much as we see the numbers each week of listeners. So encouraging that you're listening. We're still doing the question of the week spins on Facebook. Look for those. We offer a nice prize package each week to the winner of the spin. We post a question of the week, and if you correctly answer that question, taken from the current episode of Gone to the Dogs, we put you on the wheel, we spin it, and if you're the winner chicken dinner, you get all the prizes: a Zepp Coon Squaller, a copy of my book, Gone to the Dogs, A Coon Hunter's Journey. We have the braided custom paracord lead from Jerry Barker that we've added to the package, and then we have some decals and lanyards and things like that. So check us out. It's on my Facebook page, Stephen F. Fielder. If you'd like a copy of my book, it is available at stevefielderbooks.com. And with that, we'll thank our sponsors, W Hunting Supply, Alpha Dog Nutrition. Thanks for listening, folks. Corey, you want to greet the folks as we go out the door?
I hope everybody enjoyed what we had to talk about tonight, and wish you the best moving forward this week.
Absolutely. So until next time, I'm Steve Fielder for Corey Groover. We are out.